Okay, we're rolling. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Water Walk. No one knows the number of... Ooh, water's running very slowly, as it turns out, for some reason. Are we rolling? Yeah, we are. Yeah. Oh, how's everyone doing? Hey, today I was thinking, usually I do talks about, environmental stuff. Although I don't even like that word, environmentalism, anymore. I won't go into that right now. But I kind of, for now, done with it. There's nothing much more to say, in my humble opinion. But what I thought I might do is, at least today, maybe further on too, is tell stories about my long ride. And because this particular story came up to me this morning, I guess. I don't know, maybe I had a dream about it or something. But anyway, just to fill you in, some people might not know this, but I think many watching these videos probably do. Most of the people I think I know fairly well. But between 2011 and 2013, for 3 years, I went on a long-distance ride on horseback, solo, through southern Saskatchewan and Alberta. Well, central into southern, I guess you could say. Don't know. And it was an amazing experience, as one might imagine. And of course, I have lots of stories. There's plenty of things to tell about just daily living and the beauty of the living and the difficulty, physical difficulty, some mental, psychological stuff, but not too much. For me, I have no problem being out on my own in the woods or wouldn't be woods there, but wilderness and stuff, right? So it's not really an issue for me, but I am still human, so stuff like alone stuff does creep in here and there. But anyway, yeah, and so I did those 3 years of that, and I didn't travel in the winter, right? If you've ever been to southern Saskatchewan in the winter, you'll understand why, unless you had to save your life, you might not want to do a long distance horse ride then. I often think of it, it's just like the Arctic, except the days are longer in the winter. Like hardly any trees, quite arid, etc., etc. Anyway, so, right. And on top of that, for a good 3 years before that, I was preparing for the ride. And more than 3 years, really, but 3 years intensively. Spent a lot of time at my friend Chris and Lyle's ranch, kind of volunteering there, but really learning about horses from both of them, and Chris especially, was an incredible mentor for me. So I spent 3 summers there, I guess. I guess so. Anyway, right. So, and then later, Heidi and David's place in southern Alberta were my other 2 mentors. So those Chris and Lyle, and then David and Heidi, couldn't have done it without them. And I remember Chris, she said at one point, my main goal is to make it so you probably won't die. You know what I mean? Appreciated that, I tell you. Because it's a risky thing to do, eh? It's not like going to the grocery store or Disneyland. Anyway, that's not the story. So that's the setup. If you don't know about that, life-changing trip in many ways. I ended up here in Thailand after that, and I had been sort of nomadic for really since end of 2001. I left Toronto and I was working in Toronto and stuff. And anyway, began that sort of period of 14 years almost of being in motion, I thought while I was on my ride that I might end up in some small place in Saskatchewan or Alberta, where I could live simply without needing too much money and that. But I ended up here in Thailand, and I'm more than happy. One thing, even you'll know from the videos, this is a heavily forested part of the world. It's really a rainforest, I suppose, depending on your definition. The number of species of trees and bushes and plants is just astronomical. But you have to keep in mind, most of southern Saskatchewan and Alberta, where I was traveling, there's, I don't want to say no trees, but essentially no trees. Like, you'd often have trees that were planted near old farms and stuff. And a lot of the farms were abandoned, right, as they increased in size and stuff. But, so yeah, keep in mind, mostly a wide open place. Try to imagine Mongolia, except in North America. The Great Plains of North America, the Northern Great Plains. Anyway, because it's pertinent to the story, the fact that it's so open. And windy and all that, right? Harsh weather, incredible storms would come up. Hot. Like, for sure, in parts I was hitting 35, 37 degrees Celsius. Pretty dry though, but also no shade, right? It's quite something. Anyway, so first year, very much my learning year. Ooh, there's a leech. Shoot, don't like those. Get her there. Boom. Got him. Don't see too many leeches here. Anyway, yeah, so I'm just heading south. I've been out, I can't remember how long I've been out at this stage, but for certainly a few weeks by then. And I was to the west of Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. But not quite into the Missouri Couteau, which is a beautiful area, geological area. Beautiful. It's like a little bit of wilderness paradise. Because it's hard to farm. I think it's really rocky and stuff. Anyway, so when you go to places that are hard to farm, you end up into some really beautiful, still wild parts of the world of there. Anyway, okay, so I need a drink to continue. So I would travel, and then at a certain point in the afternoon, I'd start looking for a place to stay. As early as 2 o'clock, even earlier if I thought a storm was coming. So quite early on, I would keep my eyes open for a potential place to set up camp where my horses could graze, where there was water. And quite often I would stop quite early in the day, like 2 even, sometimes even 1. If you found a good spot and I wasn't sure I could find water, it's really about water in that part of the world, in my experience, then I would stop and set up camp, get the horses set up and all that. Anyway, so I found it was quite nice actually, quite sandy soil. I was living in a kind of a 3-sided shelter. It wasn't a full tent on that trip. I made this shelter, I should have forgot the name of the style, but it was a really beautiful way to sleep. But anyway, after that I went to regular tents after that year. But so I was camped out on this small ridge, and there's quite a large pond, a slough, call them, down there. It looked really quite clean actually. So I got the horses set up, staked out. Went down and got water for them, water for me. Beautiful afternoon, sunny, not too hot. Oh, beautiful. So at nighttime though, I heard this sound, right? And it was some mechanical sound. It was a tractor doing something. I didn't know what exactly. But at some point that stopped, like around midnight or something. And then sometime like maybe 1 or 2 in the evening, in the morning, I guess, I heard this. It was almost like I could hear a train coming. It was rumbling. I'm going, whoa, what's that? And then the wind started to pick up. And then, how are we doing for time? Okay. Yeah, the wind started to pick up. And I could, feel it on the tent. And it was getting really high. So I had to check on the horses, right? It was getting so fierce. Like, I don't even know what to say. Anyway, and I stepped out of my shelter, and the wind was so strong, it literally took the kind of long sleeve knit shirt and ripped it right off my back. It was tied around my neck, so it didn't come off my body exactly. But this went right off me. Like, holy Jesus. And it was swirling wind and sand, and it was incredible. But I'd say the fiercest storm that I'd come across at that point on that trip. Anyway, and so what I did was I tried to look for the horses, but I couldn't see them. It was just too crazy, right? And I couldn't. Anyway, basically, I just said, okay, well, they're somewhere. Because the sand was quite soft, right? And it had a picket with a line attached to their foot on a hobble. And but they could pull them, actually, if they really wanted to. And the ground was quite soft and sandy, so I thought, they might have pulled them. So basically what I did is I took my shelter, I took the poles down, I flattened it on the ground, and I slept with it just over me, just like a blanket over me. And I somehow got the edges down, and I held some down with my hands and some gear and stuff. And basically I just eventually fell asleep. But I had like 3 hours of sleep that day. I was completely exhausted when I woke up. Anyway, woke up, it was a nice day. Later, someone said to me, oh, that was a plow wind that you experienced. And which is kind of like hurricane force winds, but not in a big circular storm. They just kind of roll across the prairie. That's my understanding of it anyway. If anyone knows better, please let me know. Yeah. So, and then I had to figure out where the horses were. And actually, they were just over the ridge a bit. I should have actually staked them out down there. And they were just huddled down, relaxing, really. One of the horses did pull their picket, but they weren't too far away. There was no problem finding them. Anyway, so I got set up, and I said, I got to get off this hill, because this is a bad place to camp, right? It'd be perfect if it was a clear, still night, and down I was kind of following the grid roads there. It's all just dirt roads, right? So down the road a bit, I saw this clump of trees and an old house, and it looked like a place not lived in, like an old farmstead place. And they make great camps. If you're in farming country in Saskatchewan, those are great places to set up camp. And I never really had a problem with doing that. People never seemed to mind, and some are really nice about it too, actually. So I was, okay, I'm going to head there. It's going to take me an hour tops to get there. Probably less. Anyway, the guy that was working on the fields was out again in his tractor. And what he was doing was he was rolling his fields, I think it was. So this would have been when would it have been? Just prior to planting, I'd say. He was rolling the fields, I think, or maybe just after planting. I don't know, wheat farmers will know better than me. And anyway, so he said, I'm rolling my fields. And I think you get these big rollers behind the tractor, and it flattens the fields down, and it gets whatever rocks are left down into the ground, right? I guess that helps with the harvest, so they don't break machinery. Anyway, he stops. I'm walking down through a field, and he stops and gets out of his tractor, and he says, hey, how's it going? And my first thought was like, wow, a southern Saskatchewan gay wheat farmer, and a camp one at that. That was my first impression, right? I said, well, yeah, of course, that's, why wouldn't there be? But, and also, it's just that, to my, like, no matter what, Saskatchewan farmers, my cliche impression is like, they're a pretty stoic bunch, for good reason. Anyway, so I said, oh, wow, a gay Saskatchewan wheat farmer. Okay. So he asked me, so what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. He told me about his fields and so I just tell him what I'm doing. He says, oh, you know what? You should come and stay at my place. And I said, oh, okay, well, where do you live? And he says, I just live like 2 or 3 miles down the road the other way, right? And part of me was like, I don't know about that. I'm so tired. And the other camp was just so close, right? But I said, okay, fine. He says, you can have a shower and everything. Anyway, so I get down to the road, and I'm going along, and then I turn the corner just towards where his house would be, and he stops his tractor, comes walking down the road, and comes to me. So I'm like about 150 meters or 200 meters from where I was going to camp, right? And he comes up to me, I'm really sorry, but you can't come to my place anymore. I went, okay, no problem. And keep in mind, I'm on my horses. I'm tired. I'm not really there. I'm on my horse, not horses, but what the other horses is packed. So he says to me, you're so strange. This is exactly how he said. You're so strange, and I'm afraid. I'm like, oh my God. Like, I don't know what to say, but like, I don't know any of my rancher farmers friends that would ever say, I'm so afraid. That's like, anyway, it's just a breaking of cliches all the way down. And I just said, oh, that's okay, no problem, right? Like, I'm kind of relieved. I'm not going to get the shower, but I'm going to be able to camp soon, right? So I said, this is no problem, don't worry about it. But the energy was weird, right? Like, he was like, I'm so afraid. And he might have even done this. Anyway, it's so funny. Anyway, but the energy was weird, right? And Nahani, who was my pack horse, the horses pick up on that energy like you wouldn't believe, right? So Dakota, who's my saddle horse, he's like this, right? And Nahani's like a little bit like this, and she starts walking around Dakota, around me and Dakota, and I have her lead in my hand, right? So I have a lead. It's quite long, but I usually keep it tighter. Anyway, but it's long enough for her to make one round around us, right? And I'm too stunned to. It was weird too. I mean, it was fine, but it was weird, right? When someone says that to you, as you might imagine. Anyway, so I was too stunned just to let go of the lead, right? So the Nahani's walking around us, and she walks tight enough so that the lead, if you can imagine the rope tightening onto Dakota's legs, right? And he's just like, what the hell? And he just like, boom, like this, and I'm up in the air. At that point, the guy was starting to walk back to his tractor, right? So he wasn't right there, it was after. So I was trying to just kind of get myself together while this was happening, just spinning around. So up in the air I go, and I just land like on my knees and on my arms, right? But it was in sand, I wasn't hurt. I might have got a bruise or two, but nothing hurt at all. And I'm just like, oh, Jesus Christ. Anyway, he was freaked out. He was like, oh, God, I'm so sorry. And comes running back and says, this is all my fault. I'm like, oh, don't worry. And I was, don't worry, I'm fine. And then I just walked my horses back to where I was going to camp, got set up. Oh, it was such a relief just to be still. And yeah, so that's part one of the story. So I got set up, and it's so nice when you're tired, and always tired, right, on those rides. It's a beautiful feeling, but just relaxing, maybe reading something. And he comes back, he's driving, right? He comes back in, just a few hours later, I guess. And he says, oh, I'm really sorry about all that happened, I just didn't feel right. Like, I thought my girlfriend would be upset that this woman was camped out at my place. And it was like, your girlfriend? Really? But sure, that's absolutely what it was. Anyway, because I remember my friends in Stratford, I was helping them out, and there was this couple next door. That's really wild. This is so incredible, actually, the diversity of how people are. I mean, this couple was like, wow. I met the woman. There's a man and wife couple, husband and wife thing, and this woman went, whoa, you're really butch, like really masculine woman, right? And then I met her husband, and I'm like, oh, you're really feminine. It's like, wow, that was so cool. Like maybe they were gay and then had some marriage or convenience and kids or whatever, or not, right? I don't know. I didn't ask. None of my business. Anyway, so he says, oh, I'm really sorry that all happened that way. I went, no, it's okay, and I just said, oh, it was just even 2 or 3 miles would have been a long time for me today, right? So I'm really happy to be here. And to be honest, sometimes it's just nicer to be alone. It's just easier to relax, right? Anyway, he says, but listen, I'm going to a funeral in Moose Jaw. He's got his truck with him, right? He says, do you need anything? And I said, oh, well, actually, I could use some eggs. Can you me up some eggs? And said, yeah, sure I can, and I'll bring you back. I'll bring something to eat for dinner. I went, oh, okay. And he comes back. It's a bit late. Like I would eat usually pretty early, like 5:30, right? But he was coming back maybe 6:37. But I waited, and because the days are long then anyway. Comes back, and oh man, he's got eggs. He's got like bags of strawberries. He's got like cakes. He's got all this stuff, right? And of course, I offered, "Can I give you some money for that?" And he wouldn't take a penny, which is not surprising because that's how that goes in that part of the world, right? Anyway, and he brought some beer as well. So we just sat on this old wall and sat and ate. He brought some like burgers or something. Anyway, whatever it was. And we just sat and talked for like an hour and a half. And it was really nice. It was really nice. And we just talked about, I talked about my journey and talked about his life. And he worked at an antique store, right? Of course. The gay wee farmer has an antique store. Anyway. Cliches abound. Anyway. It's funny because it's true. I don't know. Anyway, it's just all really interesting and funny and beautiful to me. All that stuff that spins around it, right? Anyway, so we talk. He says, I wish I'd known you before, because then I would have been really happy to have you stay at my place, So, it was really great. And then he went off on his way, and I went off the next morning. But it's yeah, it's interesting. What am I trying to say? It's like interesting how people have fears and barriers, and it's easy to make those barriers stronger and higher, right? And it's also not that difficult to bring the barriers down, right? So obviously he was a little freaked out by this. Like, I'm tall, right? Like, I'm almost 6 feet tall. And also, I was wearing this deerskin tunic for that first year. I kind of got rid of it later because it was just getting too hot for it. But it's a great piece of clothing to wear. And it's deerskin that I tan. So I can imagine this person coming out down a hill with horses and pack wearing deerskins, for God's sakes. Like, that's a freaky thing. Like, I can just imagine, like, wow, that's so amazing, that's so cool, and like, oh, I'm really unsure what this is. Like, is this some weird time warp shit going on? Anyway, all of these ideas are spinning around, right? But really, it's the stages that it went through that it became a really beautiful thing, right? That's really happy that's how it turned out, and I ended up with this amazing story. You're so strange, and I'm afraid. This is like from 2011. I'm still laughing about it. You're so strange. Like, yeah, you're right, actually. And anyway, so that was that, eh? And on that trip, I'm going to do more. I sort of feel like talking about the journey again, so I'm going to do more trips and talking about the trip. And a lot of it's talking about the people I met. So many great people. And that same year, my friend Kyla kind of saved my butt right at the end of that year. And I'll talk about Kyla later. All these ranchers and farmers, I was always this thing I'm going to say, I was already thinking this before the trip, but the trip's completely cemented it, right? Because sometimes I don't want to make it too big a generalization, but a lot of people talk about rednecks in like Western Canada, like Saskatchewan, Alberta, ranchers, farmers, whatever. Oh, those rednecks, right? I'm like, yeah, please don't do that. Not in my company, because my experience with, again, a generalization, but from my experiences almost across the board, a lot of it depends how you approach things, right? Everywhere, how you approach things. And my experience with people in that part of the world living that way, like as ranchers and farmers, is that for the most part, if you just present yourself honestly and clearly just who you are, with no layers of artifice, all that stuff, then my experience is that people just go, okay, they'll just accept you as you are, right? There might be questions or whatever, but no, my experience is across the board. And again, another generalization bordering on cliche is that sometimes in the opposite is not necessarily true, right? But I have a slight bias towards rural people. Anyway, I don't want to get into that part of the discussion. But yeah, that was the thing. And there's so much polarization you see in the news and Facebook and stuff. I don't know. Can't really be bothered with it much. I try not to be. But again, and there's this woman that does these long motorbike rides, and she got a motorbike in India and rode down through Malaysia and Thailand, and then up through Middle East, Iran, Emirates, into Kazakhstan. You know, incredible ride. And the beautiful thing about her, and she does these great videos too. Itchy Boots, it's called. The beautiful thing about her is that her spirit just makes people open up to her, right? It's not even about what you say or anything. She just comes up to people, and you can just see people go, oh, and open up. And there's a huge lesson in that, I think, you know. Part of it, people are very different wherever you go, but it's on the same level. There's this core element that's also common and natural and really great. I find that here in Thailand all the time. I mean, it's easy to be open with Thai people. And anyway, but I'm sort of like that anyway, you know. So I love living here for that reason, right? Just being honestly who you are, not trying to create too much layers of artifice, can take you a long way. Anyway, I guess that's it for this story. 30 minutes, that's about average for me. I'm gonna check out now. Got my water set up. Now I'm gonna film a bit of the walk because I want to show you where there's a tank. If you've seen my other water walks, there's a tank that they built and then it collapsed. But anyway, I'll talk to you in a minute. Okay, bye. I'm back. Hey, I haven't shown this in a while. You can see where this corrugated stuff is. That's where the spring comes out actually. And this is the roots of this huge tree that came down. The tree is right down through here. And you can just see a little bit of the end of the tree there, but the rest of it's all gone. Some people were here cutting it, and some of it's been eaten away and all that, right? But here's the whole root ball, if you remember that at all. Here's where it's at right now. Slowly, all the dirt's being washed off, or most of it. It's slowly just breaking down into the forest. As happens here. It's very beautiful. Life. Real life. Anyway, let's continue on our walk. Yeah. Hey, I put my hat on because I found 2 leeches today. It's a little bit unusual, actually. I don't usually see leeches. I mean, I know they're here, but I don't really run into them that much. But one thing I wanted to see if I can. I'm not too sure if this is. How to word this. It's hard to talk about it without sounding like a jerk, I guess. That's the problem. No, I'm just gonna get some distance here. Yeah. So I'm thinking about this fellow who I met. Quite effeminate in his presentation, right? He's gay or not gay, I don't care. It doesn't matter. But quite effeminate. I'm wondering about the non-binary thing that's a big thing right now. Gender neutral, non-binary. I'm not sure. I find it a little unnerving in a small way, I'd say. I have a few friends that are into that. That's fine, I don't have an issue with it. But I'm wondering, I feel it's funny. I can't decide if this non-binary sort of tendency that's going on, the they-them thing and all that pronoun thing, is more restrictive or less restrictive. Do you know what I mean? Like I've met lots of men and women that cover the huge spectrum between masculinity and femininity within this context of their sex or gender or whatever, right? So that I know lots of women that are very masculine, right? Like so masculine that, okay, I know I look kind of, because of these walking and stuff, I'm more femmy than most people think. Anyway, if I can go there. Like, I just don't dress that way because of where I live and whatever, and the kind of life I lead, right? But, that's funny, eh? But, I mean, next to your average young Thai girl, I'm like, oh boy, super masculine. Anyway, but next to a Saskatchewan farmer, like, anyway, like, it's just a different world. Anyway, I guess I shouldn't go there, really. But I am curious about I guess for me, it feels more restrictive to go, oh, I'm non-binary. It's like, I'm this now. I'm non-binary. At the surface, it feels like it should be more expansive, right? But in my on my heart, it feels less expansive. It feels more restrictive. Less free. I don't know. That's just how I'm seeing it right now. I'm more than happy to hear people's opinions on it. And also it feels a bit trendy, but that could be a real thing too, right? That's just because it feels trendy doesn't necessarily mean that it's not real, right? Anyway, I'm going to leave that for now and switch over. So let's just do a good old forest walk. I was just going to make this my story, but it's sort of nice. If people want to watch and relax to it, maybe it's nice to show the different stages of the forest, as the season goes on. It's still raining a bit, but it's I'd say the rainy season's over. The full-on rainy season. Still quite humid in the forest, which is partly why we're seeing leeches probably. And the ground is moist still. You can see quite a few leaves are starting to drop, which is interesting. One thing I sensed today, coming onto the trail, is I always stop and do a little kind of prayer, I guess you could say. Anyway, before walking, and I had this real sense today, like, oh, the trail feels really alive today. Like a lot of life in it, So I've been extra careful keeping my eye out for snakes and things. But yeah, it's true enough, I saw a lot of little creatures, like some frogs and different insects coming up. Oops. I have to be a little bit careful here. Actually, no, I'm going to cut out and be back in a sec. Okay, here we go again. Okay, so here's the tank. See the tank down kind of in the center? Look at it, it fell over. I'm going to show you why. Or my theory of why. My theory of why. Yeah, I'm thinking more, I don't know, I guess I got onto the gender thing because of the man that I met. And this, anyway, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to try and see if I can continue my thoughts on that. Anyway, so here's the tank. Look what happened. So you might have, if you've seen this, you might have noticed that there was a concrete platform made, and then the tank was put on it. And it took a long time for them to hook the pipes up. Well, not that long, really. It took a while. Ooh, look at that. Wow. Oosh. I wonder if there's nothing in that. Look at that. That's a snail shell. Let's leave that in case a snail wants to move in. Okay, I don't know if they do that. Anyway, you can see what happened, eh? See the huge hole under there, eh? So, I mean, I think I saw the tank before they made the concrete. It was on solid ground, right? It wasn't a big hole in the ground. So I think what happened is they did it, they built it, it's working just fine. Then that big rain came through a while ago and somehow at the dirt underneath it and created a big hollow, and it collapsed over that hollow. It's still raining though. Can you hear the water coming in? Gotta be a little careful walking in there. Yeah, so it's filling up still. Yeah, you don't want to get in there and have it fall and have the thing fall on you. That would be not a good scene. Anyway, it's still working. I'm sure at some point, though, someone will come and try to figure out what to do with this. What a pain in the butt. Anyway, there you go. Let's continue. Yeah, so what am I thinking? It feels, I'm talking about this the gender non-binary trans thing. It feels very authoritarian, I guess, to me, right? I'm this. You have to call me this and this. My pronouns are this. If you don't say my pronouns, you're a phobe of some kind. Do you know what I mean? It feels really rigid. I'm non-binary. It makes me think of there's this great song. Oh, who's it by now? I'll see if I'll try to look for it. It's Iris Dement, maybe. I think it's a song that my friend Susanna introduced me to Iris Dement. Oh, she's a wonderful singer in the States. Anyway, I'll see if I can find it. But part of it is just let the mystery be, you know. Might even have been the song they used for that song. That show, which I can't remember the name of. Anyway, I'll see if I can find the song and post in the comments in at least Facebook. So, there's something about just letting the mystery be, right? That I think is more free. I think this is where my mind's going at the moment. I'm quite open to having it shift, but the moment, and it's, I've been thinking about this sort of thing quite a long time, so it's not just like this week, it's like for years, but at the moment I'm thinking, this whole insistence and compelled speech, well, that gets into the Jordan Peterson thing of Bill 16. I agreed with him right from the get-go, but he was called a transphobe for that. He says, no, I'm not going to go by a compelled speech thing, right? I don't know. I haven't seen one thing that was even remotely transphobic from the guy. But of course he's labeled that. He was for a time anyway. And probably many people still think that. Oh yeah, so here's the big water catchment thing. And on my last trip, you can see they cut down a lot of brush and stuff, so it's quite open here. These are all banana trees coming up. Might be wild, I don't know. Anyway. Yeah, so I don't know. Jeez, it's a difficult topic, right? Like people are afraid to get into it. I understand, because the backlash to it can be so extreme. Like people getting shut out of social media things. Like Megan Murphy was shut out of Twitter. If she was a friend, I'd love to have chats with her, and I'm sure we wouldn't see eye to eye on some things, but nonetheless, she has every right to speak, and she herself she's doing something in Toronto in the Toronto Public Library, private booking thing, and a bunch of people are trying to shut that down, and I completely disagree with that as a way to go about things, Yeah, so anyway, that's where I'm thinking, you must say this. So there's very little let the mystery be. Let the mystery be. Whatever it goes. I think of this fellow that I told the story about a lot in this context, right? Not just him, but I'm like, oh yeah, see, this is a perfect example of we're binary creatures, right? We're binary biological beings. As John Livingston would say, when I'm cut, I bleed. I'm a biological being. And he loves that, right? So part of me, I haven't fully thought this one out, just to warn you. Part of me thinks part of me wonders if this movement towards this non-binary kind of thing that everyone's jumping on, not everyone, but a lot of people, is like something against nature. I have to think this further. This is going to take a while to work through, but there's part of me that thinks, ooh, this is pushing against nature, actually. Maybe, I don't know, maybe not. But also, you know, on the same context, like I've known some women, like lesbian women, but not just lesbian, but mostly, like really butch women, right? Like really butch, like that are women still, right? Anyway, it's a complex thing, but to me, that within that context of the male and female, there can be this huge variance, right? And a huge variance that can change. So I just can't help but think the non-binary, gender-neutral thing is restrictive, not expansive. Please, if you think otherwise, speak your mind. And I've thought a few times, if I wonder if all these butch friends of mine are a little perturbed the fact that all the butch girls are becoming boys, or some sort of semblance of neither or. I don't know. Anyway, I guess we'll find out in the fullness of time how this is all going to pan out. And also, some people have made a great point that this is something that's happening in the English world, right? You don't really see it in a lot of other places in the world. Certainly not much in Thailand. Although Thailand's a really unique place in terms of that, right? In terms of that great expansiveness that I was saying, right? It's a very tolerant culture, but also quite conservative too, right? So that's interesting. It's a conservative culture, but also very tolerant. There's a lesson in that, if you ask me. Anyway, anyway, that's a whole other topic I shouldn't get into because they're becoming long as usual. Anyway, so there's some thoughts. Mostly wanted to tell the story. I'm going to tell another story. I really want to tell the story of Kyla. It's a shorter story, but really beautiful. It's nice we've stayed friends since then. Anyway, so I hope everyone's doing great. I'll see you on the next water walk. Alaf po shen, and ciao. Bye.